Thank you very much, Mr Chair. I'm happy to take a call on part 2 of this bill. And in particular, I want to talk largely about the establishment of the Electricity Authority and the regulatory arrangements that are in place. I want to start by acknowledging the comments the Minister made around what would Labor do and do we think that everything is perfect as it's operating now? And the clear answer to that is absolutely not. And I think that, generally speaking, we would agree that the electricity market has not lived up to the expectations that were established of it about 12 years ago, 14 years ago, when Max Bradford first established it through the, I think, an electricity industry bill, I think it was called at the time, when it was established back in the late 1990s. So definitely it doesn't work. The question therefore becomes that the market didn't live up to expectations. What could we do to make sure that it operates more effectively, given that we can't go back? There is no way to go back to what we had before. So what can we do? Where can we go from here? And the Labor government, the previous Labor government, decided that the establishment of the Electricity Commission to provide much more oversight to the electricity industry was the way to go. And we still believe that. We still believe that the electricity market needs to have a body that takes a much wider oversight, that deals not just with the pure functioning of the mechanics of the market, but also does look at issues around affordability, sustainability, and security of supply, of course. So those are the 3 planks that the Labor Party would put forward: security of supply, sustainability, and affordability of pricing. And so do we think the Electricity Authority, as constituted by this bill, will deliver on those things? And the clear answer to that is no. Under this bill, the Electricity Authority's objective is going to be to promote competition in, reliable supply by and efficient operation of the electricity market for the long-term benefit of consumers. I want to talk a little bit about why I don't think the Electricity Authority will be able to do all of those things. The first thing I want to talk about is the decision made in this bill to transfer the approval of grid upgrade plans, Transpower's grid upgrade plans, away from the Electricity Commission as it is now and over to the Commerce Commission. I think that's quite a significant move, and one of the reasons that I'm concerned about that is I think we do need that overall coordination and that overall approach to the electricity industry. What this bill does is it continues to fragment up everything in the way that we were seeing in the late 1990s, and I don't think that's going to lead to a more effective operation of the electricity market. Because when it comes to grid upgrades, one of the things that we have to be able to consider is what are the alternatives to approving a grid upgrade. And you can only do that effectively if we're actually considering all of the other elements around electricity, greater use, greater efficiency in the use of electricity, demand side reduction, so not just efficiency but actually reducing demand, more distributed electricity generation so that we don't have to rely on transmitting electricity from the South Island to the North Island and when it's raining a lot and the other way when it's not. So we need to be able to consider all of the alternatives to a grid upgrade, and the Commerce Commission won't be able to do that. It will have a much narrower focus. So I'm concerned that transferring that authority from a body that has a wide overview of the electricity sector to one that's very narrowly focused will not help the government to meet the objectives that it is setting out. The promotion of energy efficiency is transferred to ECA. So that once again, I come back to that idea that electricity efficiency can't be seen just on its own without reference to the other parts of the puzzle. So transmission, distribution, pricing, the effective operation of the market. We need to consider efficiency as part of a wider overall package. And one of the concerns I've got is that the ECA is going to become this small body over on one side that's dealing with electricity efficiency, and the rest of the electricity sector will therefore, including the Electricity Authority, will therefore think it's not part of their purview. Actually, electricity efficiency and the efficient use of energy has to be integral all the way through the electricity system. It can't simply be parked off to one side with the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Authority. I agree that there's some streamlining that could be done there, but this goes far too far by transferring all of that responsibility purely to ECA. This bill, another part of the bill that I'm concerned about is that the responsibility of the Minister of Energy and Resources and the Minister of Consumer Affairs, that they will be the final arbiters on all issues around fairness now. And I actually think that's concerning. because ultimately it's going to mean that consumers who are... Mr Chair, thank you very much, Mr Chair. Consumers who are concerned that the market is not operating fairly, power price increases are not fair, the only place they will be able to go under this legislation is to the Minister, either to the Minister of Energy and Resources or to the Minister of Consumer Affairs. So I think that's placing a huge burden on the Minister. It's also meaning that a consumer who wants to complain is less likely to actually be able to make any traction. Ministers are notoriously difficult to pin down at the best of times, and I don't think that this is something that they're going to have the time or the resources, and the public won't have the access to the ministers in order for that system to operate effectively. The new electricity authority established under this bill will not have any responsibility for environmental sustainability. And the government says it's still committed to the target put in place by the previous Labour administration that we are going to have 90% renewable electricity in New Zealand. This bill says that the Electricity Authority will have no regard to that and no role in ensuring that that happens. So where is it going to happen? It's not going to simply happen miraculously. It's not going to happen by being aspirational and talking about it. We actually have to put some incentives in place if we want there to be more renewable electricity. And that was one of the things that the previous Labour government was focused on, ensuring that our electricity system was more sustainable and there was a higher reliance on renewable electricity. And the Minister actually acknowledged that in the brief contribution that he made just a moment ago. He talked about the fact that there was more renewable. He talked about geothermal in particular. But there was a big investment in wind generation during the time that the previous Labour government was in office, a big investment in geothermal. And of course, we rely in New Zealand, and we take it for granted, on our hydro system. It's the backbone of our entire electricity system is our hydro system in New Zealand. And we're very fortunate that in the last year or two, it's rained quite a lot. So we haven't had any risk of electricity shortages. Jerry Brownlee, I'm sure, like all ministers in the previous government, gets the hydrology summary on a daily basis and goes through to see what the lake levels have done overnight, watches whether it's tracking up or tracking down. And of course, from all of the time that he has been the Minister of Energy and Resources, the hydro levels have been fine. He's actually had a dream run in that regard, whereas Pete Hodgson and David Parker had a bit of a nightmare scenario when it came to the rain not making it into the right places in the country. And that was a key contributor to why we had those energy savings campaigns through, I think, 2001 and 2003. So overall, we can't ignore the environment when it comes to our electricity system. So saying the Electricity Authority needs to have no regard to the environment whatsoever is a very retrograde step in that regard, because we are dependent on the environment when it comes to our electricity generation. And if we want to actually move to much more of a focus on renewable energy, if we want to hit that 90% target that the government are talking about, then obviously we're going to need to continue to focus on the environment and to focus on making sure that our electricity comes from those renewable sources. I want to talk a little bit more about another issue that the Minister raised, which is the stability of power prices. Under this legislation, the Electricity Authority will have no responsibility for considering issues around power prices at all, really. And Jerry Brownlee's response to that is, well, if power prices are going up, people can just switch power companies. So in Jerry Brownlee's world, everybody gets out when it's howling with rain outside. They go outside, they look at their meter to see how much electricity they've used. They go back inside, they look up on the internet to see which power company is going to give them the best price. And in Jerry Brownlee's little fantasy land, consumers are supposed to be doing this on a daily or a weekly basis. In reality, who's going to do that? Who's actually going to be going and monitoring their electricity price on a daily or a weekly basis? It's not realistic. In fact, probably the only way that is realistic is if we moved to the type of model set up by Meridian Energy subsidiary Power Shop, where people are actually engaging in the market themselves and buying the electricity on a sort of a pay-as-you-go basis. But, of course, the Power Shop people thought this bill was a bad idea until they were muzzled by Brownlee and told that they weren't allowed to speak about it anymore, and they had to take down the blog posts where they criticised Jerry Brownlee in this piece of legislation. But Power Shop actually are doing some quite innovative stuff, and it is providing some additional choice for consumers. But we should not overlook the fact that for most consumers, the idea that they're going to be checking their meter reading every day or every week, going onto the web, finding out what the lowest power price is and then switching